You've asked your child to just wait 5 more minutes. They asked again in 30 seconds. You told them the trip would take 2 hours. They asked if you were there yet before you even left the driveway. It feels like torture, but the real answer is far stranger than impatience. Your child's brain is not broken. It's just young, and a young brain experiences time completely differently than yours does. Here's the strange part. Time isn't something we sense directly, like sound or light. There's no organ for it. Instead, your brain builds your sense of time out of memory, attention, and prediction. And all three of those systems are still under construction in a child's mind. Consider memory first. Psychologist William Friedman spent decades studying how children understand time, and his research found something surprising. Young children don't organize their lives along a timeline the way adults do. They don't have a strong internal calendar yet. Instead, they measure time by events, not by minutes, not by hours, by what happens. So when you say, "We'll be there in 2 hours," that sentence means almost nothing to a 5-year-old. 2 hours isn't a length they can picture. It's just a foggy, undefined stretch of nothing. And nothing is unbearable to a developing mind that craves stimulation. Now, think about attention. Have you ever noticed that boredom feels physically painful to a child? That's not exaggeration. That's biology. A child's prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning, patience, and delaying gratification, doesn't fully mature until the mid-20s. Yes, the mid-20s, which means a 6-year-old is trying to endure a 2-hour car ride using a brain that is quite literally decades away from being finished. Adults can distract themselves. We can imagine the future, mentally skip ahead, replay a memory, plan tomorrow's meeting. Children, especially young ones, live mostly in the present moment. When the present moment is boring, there is no mental escape hatch. So they reach for the only tool they have. They ask you, "Are we there yet?" There's a name for the sensation they're fighting. It's called time dilation, and it isn't unique to children. Have you ever sat in a waiting room with no phone, no book, nothing to do? Minutes stretch. Seconds feel sticky. That's the same mechanism, just amplified in a young brain that hasn't yet built up the tools to cope with it. Psychologist Piaget, whose work shaped almost everything we know about childhood cognitive development, proposed that children under 7 struggle with something called conservation of time. In simple terms, they don't yet understand that time passes at a constant rate regardless of what's happening around them. A wait filled with excitement feels short. A wait filled with silence feels endless. To a child, these aren't two experiences of the same 10 minutes. They feel like 2 entirely different lengths of time. So when your child asks, "Are we there yet?" for the 5th time in 15 minutes, they're not being dramatic. Their internal clock is genuinely telling them that an unusually long time has passed. Their nervous system is not lying to them. It's just not calibrated the way yours is. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Neuroscientist David Eagleman has spent years researching how the brain constructs the experience of time, and one of his key findings is that time perception is deeply tied to novelty. New experiences feel longer in the moment and get compressed in memory. Familiar, repetitive experiences feel short in the moment but stretch out when you look back. A long car ride is often the opposite for a child. It's not novel enough to hold their attention, but it's also not familiar enough to fade into the background. It sits in an uncomfortable middle zone. Nothing new to grab onto. Nothing routine to disappear into. Just waiting. And waiting, for a child, is a kind of low-grade distress. Not a tantrum, not a crisis, but a real, physical restlessness that adults have simply learned to suppress over years of practice. Think about what patience actually requires. It requires holding a future outcome in your mind while ignoring your current discomfort. It requires trusting a promise you can't verify. It requires suppressing an urge in favor of a reward you can't yet see, touch, or measure. Now ask yourself, is it a skill you were born with? Or is that a skill you built slowly, over years, one uncomfortable wait at a time? Every "Are we there yet?" is a rehearsal. It's a child's brain practicing the exact circuitry that will one day let them sit through a long lecture, wait for exam results, or save money instead of spending it immediately. The frustration you feel in the back seat is, in a strange way, the sound of patience being built in real time. There's a modern twist to all of this. Children today grow up surrounded by devices that respond instantly. A video loads in seconds. A game restarts immediately after failure. A question gets answered the moment it's typed into a search bar. Researchers studying attention and instant gratification have noted that this kind of environment can make the gap between wanting something and getting it feel even more foreign to a young, developing brain. So a car ride, without a screen, without a game, without an immediate reward, becomes one of the few remaining moments in a child's day where they're forced to sit with unfilled time. No wonder it feels unbearable to them. It might be one of the last places where genuine, old-fashioned waiting still happens. And that's exactly why it matters. Psychologists who study self-regulation, building on the foundational marshmallow studies from Walter Mischel, have found that the ability to delay gratification in childhood is linked to outcomes in adulthood, from academic performance to emotional regulation. Not because delaying gratification is magic, but because every small moment of waiting, every unanswered "are we there yet?" every minute spent staring out a car window with nothing to do is quiet training for a skill they'll need for the rest of their life. So the next time you hear that question from the back seat, try not to hear it as annoyance. Try to hear it as a brain in progress. A brain that hasn't yet learned to hold a foggy, undefined stretch of time without needing reassurance. A brain that is very literally building the exact muscle it will use for the rest of its life every single time it has to wait. Because one day, that same child will sit in traffic without complaint. They'll wait for test results without panic. They'll save for something instead of buying it today. And they won't remember the 100 car rides that built that ability. But you will. You've asked your child to just wait 5 more minutes. And somewhere in that waiting, quietly,